Hello, everyone. We'll take a minute for everything to boot up and everyone to join in. Thank you so much for joining us for another webinar in our Customer Spotlight series. I'm Michelle Clifton with Workday, your host for today's discussion. If you have any questions at any time, please share them in the comments below. So become familiar with the instructions and the icons at the bottom. We won't be answering questions throughout the presentation live, but we will be saving that excitement for the end. We do have some moderators that are going to be on and try and answer questions throughout. So we want to make sure to get to all of those, but that'll have a good engagement that we have waiting for us at the end. So we are joined today by our amazing colleagues from Carthage College and AVAP. And I am just so honored to have both of you today. And I'll tell everyone in the group, I have had an absolute pleasure working with these two, talking about all of the advances and just fantastic functionality that exists within financial aid and the synergy between these two companies. So I can't wait for you to learn more from them. So first, I have Carthage College. They are a private liberal arts college located in Kenosha, Wisconsin, on the shores of Lake Michigan. And I'm sure right now, Jeff, you're enjoying a gentle winter breeze from those lakes, right? Roughly 2,600 students. Carthage provides an intimate learning environment with small class sizes and personalized attention from faculty. Carthage combines a strong liberal arts foundation with career preparation and a focus on personal growth. So it's a great school, many wonderful things and lots of awards that you've won. So from Carthage, we have Jeff T. Jeff is the Carthage Director of Student Financial Services. Jeff, welcome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next, we have Sasha Ramirez Acosta from AVAP, and she is the Workday Student Manager. Welcome, Sasha.
Hello.
Hello. AVAP is a technology consulting and managed services firm that helps organizations implement and optimize enterprise software solutions, primarily focusing on Workday. So they are experts at it and be able to answer some great questions today. They offer a range of services from initial planning and implementation to ongoing support and optimization. So without further delay, let's jump into this exciting topic and demystify financial aid. This will be an edge of your seat conversation as we hear how Carthage streamlines processes, increases efficiency, and empowers both students and staff. All right, so one of the benefits of modernizing with technology is that blank canvas. So legacy systems can be 20 or 30 years of customer rigid processes or customization that really can limit your flexibility and student and staff experience. So Jeff, before you started your implementation discussions or Workday experience, what were some of your goals? What were some of the, hey, this would be the dream of what we would like financial aid to look like?
Absolutely. Thank you, Michelle. So in the beginning, we really wanted to define and refine processes to enhance the student performance and the workflow flow staff. So, looking at that legacy system and where things were at and how we want to move forward with the future, right? So really looking to simplify the process so that we could enable students to complete, financial aid action items independently. Not that we don't want to be there to help them, but we want to give them the option to be able to do things, on their own at the drop of a dime, right? The biggest thing for us that was key was to leverage automation. So really looking to put faith in the system to do that manual work and allow us to spend more one-on-one time with those students. The biggest key factor was we were spending most of our time during the day just going through and manually doing the work that needed to be done, and the students were being serviced, right? But it wasn't necessarily the main priority that we had time for. So really just looking, how can we, rely on that automation and really put our students in the forefront of things.
And I think that makes your job a little more enjoyable when you're not just heads down doing tactical processes, but you can really problem solve what the problem is the student is having.
Absolutely, right. And you can have time to problem solve that right away and not have to, make a note and hopefully come back to that later on. It gives you that option to really dive deep and tackle that problem head on right away, which is great.
Exactly. Sasha, how about you? What are some of those blank canvas things as you all were looking to work with Carthage and you heard about their goals? What were some of your vision for the
Absolutely.
campus?
So one of the most exciting things about working with Carthage is that they were very open to really understanding what the best practices were. And so, through AVAP, we've been able to work with a lot of different customers and really kind of gain that experience of what works best. And so we knew that Jeff's goal was to reduce that manual effort so that his staff would actually have additional time to serve students. And so for us, it was looking for those opportunities of what does Carthage do well, but that they can do better and more efficiently if we add that magic of the Workday automation behind the scenes. And so that's where we really started. And so, with that in mind, we also wanted to be future focused because we want to make sure that we planned for when Carthage has additional scholarships, additional awards. That's something that we're always striving for in financial aid is to create more opportunities for extra funding. So we wanted to build a structure that allowed for growth. And so, as we were going through and looking at, okay, this is the best practice, this is what we've done, how do we grow this into the future? We allowed Carthage the opportunity to create what they would like that future state to be. And that really made it a fun project for us because we were going through and kind of helping them design what the future of their financial aid department would look like.
I love it. I just want to double click on this for a second because I've spoke with other of your customers and institutions you've worked with. And so I've heard this a couple of times that you don't look just to solve the fire or the problem that we have today. We have the FAFSA simplification and there's just a lot of fires burning. You're looking at that. Let's not re-implement your old system, but what is the system of the future? What do you want to do for the future? And how can we be agile today to achieve that? So I've heard it before. So you have a trend. Good job on that.
Thank you.
All right. Well, share with us some of your experiences as you've helped your staff and students become more efficient. And this is why I think a lot of our listeners have signed up today. We all want to be more efficient. Tell us some real life stories. Jeff, why don't you go first?
Absolutely. Yes. The efficiency was key, right? Just to kind of free up time for our team so that we can spend more time with students, right? So by using that Workday automation, we were able to do that, right? To free up our team's time to meet with students and guide them through the financial aid process on a more individualized basis. Right. So instead of kind of having to maybe tackle groups of students and groups of situations, we really will then be able to focus on each individual student and make it more personalized for their needs. So the information is more readily accessible and better organized, which is going to help our entire team once again do our jobs on a daily basis, but also help our students when we have better access to information. What we
Right.
found was the students that we work with heavily, they found that the Workday was easy to use and they liked the ability to have information available to them right at their fingertips, right? So the cell phone, the mobile device is huge. And students today want quick access to everything, quick access to information at all hours of the day. We hear from students, on the weekends, for example, they'll send a message to say, "Hey, your office wasn't open. I was really hoping to get some information." Well, with things like Workday, that self-service piece is a game changer for students. They have us available Monday through Friday for sure, but at all hours of night and on the weekends as well, that same information we can give it to them, they have right at their fingertips. And so that was a key piece for students to really have information right when they need it. Because as we know, students now, they want information when they want it, right? And so having the pieces like this, it does just that for them. So in turn, it's great for us, but our student satisfaction is through the roof, right? They're much happier when they can do this on their own when they want to.
And that's key because when they
Yes.
want to is 2 in the morning and I've been asleep for 5 hours.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly. Yep. And that's what we would see, Michelle. We would see those emails on the weekend in terms of, 2 or 3 emails from the
right?
same family being like, "Hey, why is no one there to help us?" Great. Now you can kind of self-service until we can get to you. And they love that.
Right, absolutely. Sasha, how about you?
So, two of my favorite things that we've actually really gotten to share with Carthage, and that makes me really excited. I love financial aid. I'm totally a financial aid nerd. So, one of the things that I really like is this reaction framework that was actually built by Workday. One of the things that we always talk about with financial aid offices is the amount of time that they spend using reports to track what our students do. Did a student drop a class? Did a student change their program of study? The the ideal student would pick their program, take all their classes, and they would be good to go. But we know that's not the reality. And so financial aid staff spend a lot of time trying to chase down students and what they're doing. But from the Workday perspective, there's actually a reaction framework that is looking for those changes for us and putting them on a report. So now that whole guessing game of, okay, well, who made a change? When did they make a change? What was the change? We take that piece out. We now have a report. We're able to work through it. So we're able to catch any changes that need to be made a lot faster. And so that makes that federal processing a lot smoother for the Carthage team. In addition to that, I think the biggest advantage for Carthage and any school really using Workday is that Workday does a lot of the work for us when it comes to things like federal regulation changes. I remember being in the financial aid office, and every year you dread getting those changes, those comment codes that are going to change. Well, the good thing is that Workday has dedicated resources to stay on top of those changes. And so they look at those changes, they brainstorm, they immediately come up with the functionality or whatever is needed to keep schools in compliance, and they push that out to us. So it's kind of a relief that we're not in it alone, and more importantly, that we have the power of Workday doing it, so all schools are getting the same information. We're all testing it together, and we know that we're getting it as soon as it happens. There's not a delay because Workday's on it. And being able to make sure that Carthage was able to add that to their processes, I think was huge.
That was one of the things I was so impressed when I came to Workday, was that we are connected with the Simplification Act and different Department of Education. We're involved in other areas, so we know when things are changing. And we also have, and Jeff, I don't know if you're involved in the user group and the user community. So there's a monthly financial aid meeting. I join it. I barely know what you all are talking about because it's so in the weeds, but you would almost think that it's an Aerosmith concert at the excitement that's on that call. But it's getting those users together to really talk about what's working, what's not, what would be the dream, that sort of thing. So that's where we do get that feedback and hear from everyone. All right, so colleges and universities have a devotion to getting it right with financial aid. So I think, speaking to everyone on this call, and I've worked on 3 campuses, and when I would work with financial aid, to me, they were the stewards of the students' financial responsibility, their account and their scholarships. And I was always financial aid adjacent in advising with scholarships. So there was this back door where I would take my student and sneak around and kind of say, is there a consequence if they do this? And about 99% of the time, yeah, there's a consequence. Don't make this change or that change. But it was all manual. And it was walking around and didn't want people to know there was this secret door, that sort of thing. So we wanted to make sure we got it right. So if you ask the director of financial aid, what keeps you awake at night, they're going to sound off a list of processes that they need done correctly. So could you share with our attendees today some of the financial aid table stakes, those things that Workday has delivered that helped you sleep soundly at night?
Yes, and Michelle, you said it perfectly. I think before Workday, my list of things that I would lose sleep at night on, make notes on the weekends to not forget was a very long list. But now Workday's hit so many things, right the first time to make our jobs just that much easier. Two of the biggest things for us, right, was the SAP history. So the entire SAP process in Workday has been incredible for us. So, Workday's provided an entire screen dedicated to each individual student's full SAP history, right? So it makes it easier to provide transparency when we're counseling students on recommended next steps. As we're kind of working with them to send them forward, if their financial aid were to be at stake, right, they're going to want to know exact key details of what to do going forward. So no need to look at multiple screens, try to go and do hand calculations from this system and that system on your own. The fact that all of it is put together for each individual student and updated semester by semester is huge, right? It makes life so much easier for the staff as they're working with students to make sure that picture is clearer and kind of put ahead the first time. One big thing. Second, the big thing that I would say, I would guess would hit most people on the call would be that, direct loan reconciliation, right? One of those
Oh,
things that
yeah.
everybody dreads, right? I can't find somebody that would love to do this, right? I think it's one of the most dreaded parts about working in financial aid. And so Workday's created a tool that's going to allow schools to load those SAS files right into Workday. Workday is going to then identify the discrepancies between students. So therefore, right away, now we've reduced the time to complete the reconciliation process from what would take us days in the past to, a couple hours, maybe a day, when Workday is going to provide the list of say, hey, here's the info, here are your discrepancies. Here's what you need to fix to move forward. So we're not playing a chasing game. Workday's right there side by side with us to say, let's do this together. Here's the information. So talk about, gaining some sleep back. Those are giant things that if we want to look at, compliance and keeping schools funded, Workday's doing it. Workday's helping us out in the best way possible.
Absolutely. What was always hard was knowing that those deadlines were coming up
Yeah.
and no one in financial aid could take a day off, a vacation, anything, because those were dates that they were at the office 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. just waiting on something to go wrong. But from what you're saying, you're touching those anomalies and the one-off.
Yes.
That's wonderful. So as many of you on this call may know, Workday has had a platform student information system for around a decade with over 65 live customers on student. But the exciting thing is that we keep growing and we keep adding to the product. So that'll be our next topic of conversation as we demystify. Sasha, how have you seen financial aid evolve?
Yes, so I have actually been very fortunate to be one of the first users of Workday Student Financial Aid when it went live. So I've had the pleasure of seeing the product grow for almost 10 years now. And so it's been so exciting to see just all of the efficiencies that have grown. So, of course, we're definitely getting those updates from the federal guidelines, right? We have to do those. But Workday doesn't stop there. We have community, which is where all the schools can go out and add in their brainstorms. They can say, this is what our needs are. Schools vote on them. And Workday takes that seriously. And so, what we've seen is that requests that we've made when working with other customers are actually coming to fruition. You'll see Workday's release schedule and you'll see, oh, they're bringing this out. I remember this school requested this, or this is going to be really helpful to this customer. So seeing that Workday is growing and we have the ability to influence that path is huge. And so, like, specific examples of things that we've seen come to life are things like interim calculations. One of the things that financial aid wants to know is when we're making a decision on what awards to give a student, what else are they getting? And the fact that Workday can make that decision and help us determine who and how much students are receiving, that's huge. It's doing the work for us. Then we've also been able to go through and actually find ways to auto package students that maybe previously we wouldn't have had the opportunity to do. So a lot of those students who apply early decision students, early actions, we've been able to go through and actually create processes for them that would have normally been manual or not even possible at all. So for us, it's more than just the ability to keep up with the regs. We know we have to do that, but it's being able to see how Workday has gone through and quickly adapted based off of what their customers are experiencing and how the whole field of financial aid has changed so much over the past 5 years. So it's definitely been an exciting journey, and it's always nice to see what's coming out. It's really exciting to see, oh, the new release is coming. Let's talk about what's coming. So we definitely enjoy that part, and it's something we've done with Carthage and that we both enjoy kind of looking at together as well.
And just for a specific use case, when you talk about that auto packaging and getting things turned around based on the institution type. So the smaller institutions that offer packages, maybe some of our private institutions, time is the enemy. When you take too much time to get back to a student with what their aid is, they're usually looking at 3 or 4 institutions. You're competing against them with the package, with your time, and with the relationship ease of use. And I hear this from my friends' kids that are going to colleges at places. They're like, I didn't even get a letter from that one. I just now heard I got a scholarship. Well, they went ahead and committed somewhere else. And in their mind, they're already married to that other institution. I'm like, no, everything's on the table, but I can't get them to see that they needed to be proactive and call in. They think the school should, so there's just this perception, but now you have the ability to reach out and get that information and get them to, in their mind, marry to Carthage. I mean, that's a win, especially when we're looking at industry trends. We are at the front door of the enrollment cliff. And based on where regionally you are in the United States, some areas are going to get hit harder than others. So every student commitment counts. And also the same with retention. And financial aid is the number one reason people say I need to stop out is I don't have the money. So these points you hit on, Sasha, are very important. Thank you. Okay, so I'm gonna take a second and invite everyone on the call to put questions in the chat. I'm gonna ask another question, but while we're doing that, you can put questions in the chat. And then we're gonna go to those questions, but then we're still gonna have some final thoughts at the end. So just because we break up for questions, don't drop off yet, because there will be some things at the end for everyone. But we also have some individuals, some really experienced subject matter experts and thought leaders from AVAP on the call. So they're going to jump in there and help us answer those questions as well. We just really want to get everybody's questions resolved for financial aid as best we can. All right. So now let me ask, where am I? Oh, let me scroll down. What advice would you give to a customer who is at the beginning of their Workday experience? What should they be thinking about? Jeff, let's start with you.
Absolutely. I think one of the biggest things would be to define your key takeaways right from the start so that you're able to measure success throughout your project. You're going to have a lot of success, a lot of big milestone moments to celebrate, and they need to be celebrated. So I think the big thing would just be to kind of keep track of those key takeaways. So as you're progressing through your project, you know where you want to land. Also, a biggest thing that we definitely took to heart, be open to changing the way things are done, for the best outcome for your staff and your students. Like we talked about, students are modern, right? Technology is modernized, things are moving forward. And so I think now you need to encourage your staff to move with it. And Workday is going to allow your team to move forward by doing that. So really be able to kind of jump out of your comfort zone with the project and really, kind of what the best needs of your office and your students are, lay them all out on the table. I think the final thing I would say is to invite students to the conversation, right? You want to understand their expectations of things. If financial aid is the challenge, for us at times as individuals, it's definitely a challenge for students as well. So see what, can help put them at ease. We want them to be successful students. So what can we do on our end to make the financial aid information just easier for them to have access to view, to complete, make them take this part of the experience away, make this nice and easy so they can really focus on why they're here.
That is absolutely great, especially ask the student. I always think I know what their expectations are, but I'm not in that generation anymore. And they've been raised on technology and Spotify and,
Oh.
Instagram and social media. And so they have a different expectation for communication and payments. So definitely bring your students into the conversation, and also students of all backgrounds and categories. So you're returning adult learner, you're a part-time student, you're a full-time student, I'm just here to take one class for fun student. All types of students have different experience recommendations and standards. Sasha, how about you?
So for me, it's also a similar experience in that we want to make sure that we're looking at those best practices. But I think when we come in as an implementation team, there's always a lot of fear around what is this implementation going to look like? How is it going to impact me? And one of our big focuses at AVAP is that change management process. And so, we really focus on first and foremost making sure that schools understand Workday's not coming here to completely turn everything over upside down. What we want to know is what do you do well? And let's use Workday to enhance it. Let's use the Workday tools to actually bring your game up to a whole nother level. And so through the use of change management, we've created communication plans, job aids, training schedules, a lot of different tools and deliverables that we're actually able to use with both faculty and staff. And we've also rolled it out to students as well, that has made that process a lot simpler, and it takes away that fear. Now it becomes an exciting adventure for us to go on together, as opposed to, oh no, my whole life is changing because we have a new system to use. And so when we kind of take on that attitude, at that point, we actually create an environment where people can ask questions like, why do we do this? Why have we always done this? Do we want to do this in the future? If we have 100 more students, how are we going to scale this process? And that's where the real magic of an implementation happens, because we have the ability then to have good conversations about how do we use Workday to improve that experience. And that's that sweet spot that as consultants, we love to get to with our customers.
That's excellent. Okay. Well, those are some good things to think about. Great advice for those who have been through it. Now let's go ahead and jump over in the questions for a couple of minutes and see which one of these we can jump into. Okay. Some of these are initials, and I'm going to have you jump in and tell me what they mean, Sasha. But will Workday implement INAS processing?
So to me, that means institutional methodology. And so
Okay.
that's actually a very common question that we get asked. And so Workday has actually partnered with PowerFades to go through and use that as their strategy for institutional methodology. But we've also been able to come up with alternative solutions for schools who maybe don't necessarily need to use the whole CSS profile. They're really just looking for several data points. And we've actually been able to create kind of a hybrid approach where Workday is still the system of record for financial aid, because you don't want to lose any of that great functionality, but we get the fields that we need from the profile, so you get the best of both worlds. So that is something that we currently use. We use either PowerFades partnering with Workday, or we create custom integrations and custom objects. So both have been successful options for our customers.
Hey, wonderful. Thank you very much for that.
Mhm.
How does Workday manage CPOS?
So this is a fun one. So of course, one of the things that financial aid has to do is make sure that the students' courses are going towards their program of study. And so in Workday, we're all interconnected. As my boss, Michelle, likes to say, it's financial aid is brought to you by advising. And so that's one of the great things is advising goes in, they build their degree audit, and financial aid reads directly from that. And so we're both looking at the same data points. Financial aid is consuming that, and then we're able to leverage that however is needed in our calculations. So it's really nice to be able to go to the direct source, since advising is the one who's making the determination. So it really does allow it to be a much smoother and easier process and incredibly transparent for the student.
Wonderful. Now this one is sort of a advising question. So if we have to punt this one to Michelle or somebody else, we can also follow back up. But are class registration and grades in Workday through the registrar's office? Might be
Yep.
Michelle.
I can jump on and
Hey,
take it.
Michelle.
Yeah. Am I freezing? There we go. Yeah. So absolutely. So that's a part of course, in Workday Student, you'll be able to see all that information. A part of who does the work, right, could be a little bit different, but you're going to see that information on the student record. So every grade that's inputted, you're going to see that information as soon as you click that button for those students. Let me know if you have more questions about that. But like Sasha said, advising does their part to support financial aid, especially with the degree audit piece. So all of those courses that are coming in, we make sure that they're financial aid eligible.
Okay, and just a reminder for everyone to put your question in the Q&A rather than chat so that I can go through them over there. That's helpful. Then others on the panel can also answer if I'm not able to get to all of them. Let's see, many software providers were not prepared for GEFVT reporting. There's also another question around GEFVT reporting. So could you speak to just that a little bit, Jeff and Sasha? How did Workday help out with that one?
So Jeff, I'm happy to take that one on.
Sure.
So of course, this is a hot topic for a lot of us. We know that gainful employment is definitely something that we've seen go back and forth. And so Workday, as always, is always on top of all of those new changes that are coming up. And they always make sure that they have the required functionality or required release information for us to make sure that we do hit those deadlines, like the January 15th deadline. So Workday is an incredible partner to have, especially when these things come out, because they dedicate their entire team to making sure that we are able to get the functionality done by the timeline that we need.
All right. Anything to add, Jeff, on that one?
No, that's spot on. I agree completely with Sasha there. Yep.
Okay. We have a guest with us from Concordia University, and they said they have a number of complicated business rules, as to most institutions, especially we get to private schools and you might have scholarships that are, with so many criteria. Can you talk about a business rule or something that you encountered that was complicated, and then how did you handle it?
So I'll actually start this one, and then I'll let Jeff add his perspective. But we have come across some very unique criteria, especially when creating any type of condition rule or calculation for award items. So there's been schools such as Carthage who need fields that maybe we don't ask for in Workday. Maybe we have to ask them from an admissions application. How do we get that information into the tenant? How are we able to go through and test it and leverage it? And so what we're able to do is basically any field that comes in from the ICER, any field on the student record can be leveraged either in a condition rule, a calculation, a calculated field. So it's a great feeling of being able to, if you can see it, you can report on it, you can use it. And that's really what allows us to be able to go through and build those more complex conditions. So for example, things like at Carthage, we had to look at religion for a particular scholarship. We had to collect that information. We had to figure out a way to do that creatively, and we did. So we're really able to work on things as long as we can get it into Workday, which we've never had issues doing. Then as long as it's there, we can go through and leverage it in any of our calculations or condition rules for our BPs.
Absolutely. We have quite a few award items that are based off of questions out of admissions application. So I like Sasha saying, a lot of things we found a way to get into Workday, as we need that criteria for financial aid packaging. So it can all be done.
All right, there's a question about communicating with students. So we'll talk about communication for a minute. We're accustomed to communicating with students via a student portal. Can you describe how Workday envisions that type of communication, or how do you communicate back and forth with students?
So I'll
Jeff?
start it with the functionality, and then Jeff, you can
Okay.
probably give a real life example. So specifically, Workday has created what they call financial aid communication policies. So they know that there's going to be very specific communications that every school has to send out to their students. So those are already kind of packaged together as a policy, and we're able to send that to students. And when we're choosing to send it to students, we have the options to send it to their college email or maybe their personal email. It depends on what your preference is. But we're also giving students information within Workday as well. So a student logs into Workday, they look at their Workday inbox, they'll be able to see their action items. And it really becomes a change management training issue, because what we're doing is we're teaching the student to go into Workday to get the information they need. So when they go into Workday, they're not just getting financial aid items in their inbox. They're getting information from advising, student financials. So really, it does become that central hub for the student to get the information they need. So yes, we communicate with the student within Workday, but we can also send emails to students outside of Workday. And then my favorite piece is called a call to action. You can add those to engagements, and what it does is at the bottom of the email, the student clicks on that call to action and it takes them directly to the page they need within the Workday portal. So it's very nice to be able to streamline that process for students. So students have found that to be incredibly easy to use, and they found that it's easy to be responsive to. Jeff, you can
I
also.
also do like to be able to message back and forth with students. So if a student submits an action item to us and maybe they've submitted the wrong document, right then and there we can essentially comment on the document, kind of more in depth of what we do need, and then send that message right back to the student directly in Workday. So that simple message back and forth on specific items is really nice for students as well, so things don't get lost.
Great. Okay, well, this next question is common in almost every implementation discussion, new prospect demo sort of thing. But were there any processes, and I know the answer is going to be yes, maybe not if you're in your area, but another area, any processes you hit a roadblock and you weren't able to set up what you wanted to do in financial aid? Now, I know you'll get that question in academic records and other areas because there are so many unique things institutions have already in place. So the first step, and you'd already hit upon it, look at why you're doing something and answer, do we still really need to do it this way? And if the answer is yes, we need to do it this way, how do you go about finding that way or discussing it? So Jeff, Sasha, did you hit a roadblock with something where maybe you had this snowflake of a situation and it didn't work? What did you do?
So I'm happy to share a lesson learned that we got as consultants as well as part of the Carthage project. And that was how we handled those terms like J terms or winter terms as part of our academic calendar. You know, we
Okay.
had gone down one direction and we felt like that was the right way to do it. And as we started working on it, we realized this isn't giving us the results we want. So we were actually able to go back to Workday and ask for their guidance. And Workday product gave us what they considered to be the best solution. We were able to implement that together with Carthage and test it. And then we were finally able to get the solution we wanted. And sometimes that's just part of the process. You have to build something, test it out, see what it looks like, and then you realize, you know what? I think we need to improve this. We need to change it. And we did that multiple times. Sometimes you just have to pivot on a project, and Carthage was great with doing that.
And Sasha, that's what I went to in terms of J-Tone, because not only did it affect, the financial aid team, it affected, multiple areas on campus during the implementation. So we really all had to come together to make different decisions to make things work the best. And so that was a cool thing in a way that affected all of us. And so it really kind of drew everybody together to work with Workday and say, what's the best solution to make this happen. So it was cool that it kind of was an issue, we'll say, across the board, and then how we were able to solve that.
Wonderful. Can you explain how the SAP appeal process works in Workday?
Sure. So it essentially goes through a questionnaire. So you can develop a questionnaire for students. When you run that SAP process, you can send that questionnaire directly to students, individually right through Workday, right? So in the past, we were essentially, emailing a paper, PDF form to our students. And now once you're running the SAP process, you can develop that questionnaire on how you want questions to be formed, and it will send those directly to the needed students right in Workday.
Okay, wonderful. There's one or two questions about a timeline, like product management timelines. I'm not going to answer those because I do not have the most updated product timeline with me. However, I will say reach out to one of our AVAP folks here, share your information. They can follow back up with you on that, because Workday will release a projected timeline. They'll say these things are happening in this amount of time, and these things are very likely to happen in this longer amount. So you can see what's really happening, but then what we have projected for longer periods. So you can kind of know what's coming. And I did not bring that to this. I'm sorry for that. So just, I am, let's say Michelle or Analia, and give them your information and they'll be able to follow back up with you on some of those answers. Let's see, let's go in here. Rolling back down. Do you have electronic processing for private loans with ELM, including change transactions?
So there is a very robust process for us to be able to bring in all of that private loan information into Workday. So that's definitely something we currently do, and we're always happy to discuss that and what the specific requirements are for a particular school.
Does Workday handle non-term based programs like certificate?
Absolutely. So Workday is actually able to not only just do like your standard term processing, but you're able to go through and do modular courses as well. And then Workday also supports the ability to do certificate programs that are clock hour as well. So Workday will do the clock hour calculations for you and allow you to award Pell in those instances for certificates as well. So we do have the ability to support all of those standard, those modular courses, and then also those clock hour certificates too.
All right. Can you give an example of how Workday handles non-school centralized financial aid programs? For example, and lots of states have this, state scholarships where our state organizations have already determined who quotes winners and they are electronically eligible.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's actually a process built out in Workday for that, and it's called the external awards process. And so what we do is we basically take the information that is either provided by the state, maybe your athletic department is giving out 200 scholarships. When we have a list of awards that are coming from somewhere else, the eligibility has been determined elsewhere, we're able to load that into Workday and then package it as part of one of our packaging runs. So it is a process. I know that Jeff has used it quite a bit at Carthage as well, so he can share his experience, but it is a delivered process within Workday.
Yep, absolutely. So it's
Yeah,
like,
Jeff.
yeah, for the state of Wisconsin, for example, Wisconsin does provide funding. So we've set up a student award item with specific criteria attached to it. And then when Wisconsin kind of will send us, hey, here's an approved list. These are students we want to give that to. We're able to do what Sasha's saying and use that outside award to load those directly into Workday.
Okay. Well, understanding financial aid officers wear many, many hats, right? We have one question, understanding that a financial aid officer also can administer veterans benefits. And when I worked at the Citadel, that was in our area as well. How do you handle the building and variation of federal and state regulations?
So that's
Any
where your
experiences with veteran or veteran programs?
Absolutely. So Workday does already deliver some veterans functionality. You're able to capture the student's particular chapter. Are they a chapter 1606 or chapter 33? We're able to capture that in Workday for their veterans benefits. We're also able to track their military status within Workday. But then as a partner, AVAP has also been able to create reports to help things like going through and actually reporting enrollment or changes in reporting enrollment. So we have a lot of tools that we've been able to actually build to help with veterans benefits to kind of use what Workday has delivered, but also extend that a little bit more to make it more personalized to the institution when you are going through and you're trying to do things in VA once and Workday.
I don't know the details of it, but for those of you listening on the call, that there is, we do have functionality within Workday, and it's called Built on Workday, where we have partners and other organizations that can build an add-on kind of extra feature. And there is one out there built by one of our partners that is specific for veterans. I'm not sure to the extent of the functionality. I do know we're having conversations with them to do a webinar later this fall around Veterans Day for that. So that'll be coming. Keep your eyes open for that. But that's also as more and more organizations like AVAT get interested and really see the power and the agility of Workday, they're interested in building those unique for other population kind of add-on functionality. So we'll see that continue to grow in the next couple of years. All right, we'll try and get to maybe two more questions and then go to our final thoughts. Does Workday have an automated solution to handle changes in loan fees as a result? An example, you may cancel any undispersed loan and re-originate it with the correct fee. Did I get that right? That makes sense.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Sequestration, one of financial aid's favorite words. So yes, Workday does deliver that as well.
Okay.
So what it does is there's actually a task specifically to address this. And what it'll do is you're actually able to put in the loan fee as of that October 1st date. And if a loan has not dispersed, that's caught as part of our reaction process that we talked about a little bit earlier. And what Workday will do is it will go through, and because there's a change in the loan fee, it will actually make us reprocess the student so that we can re-originate and still stay in compliance with that. So Workday has thought of that. They've given us a task, and it's something we've been able to use successfully.
Well, let's see. Can Workday accommodate borrower-based academic years in standard term of trimesters, semesters, and quarters, as well as credit hours without terms? There's a lot in that question.
There's a lot. And so to answer the first piece, yes, Workday does support borrower-based academic years.
Okay.
And of course, as far as the standard terms of whether they're trimesters, semesters, and quarters, obviously when you're working with your Workday partner, we're able to help you develop your calendar to meet the needs of your borrower-based year. So we'll definitely, it's something we would work with the school on to make sure that it's built out in the way that it's needed. But Workday does support borrower-based.
Okay. When Workday functionality, let's see, when was Workday functionality available to users to start loading 25-26 FAFSAs? Some people had to start filing around December 1, but other schools were still waiting on the updates for their software provider for this functionality.
Absolutely. So I can definitely tell you we are not waiting for any updates for the functionality. We've actually been loading ICERs in Workday, and those have all looked, exactly as we expect. We haven't had any issues reported. So it's definitely something that, we're doing on a day-to-day basis.
And how does Workday handle outside scholarships?
Absolutely. So there's a couple different ways that you can do that. If you just have a list of outside scholarships, of course, you can handle them through the external awards process. If you have like a scholarship application where students go to like a third party and they, do an application and then you get a list from there, we've been able to do custom integrations to go into that system and pull that information in. And then in some cases, when it's just on a one-off basis, we've been able to work with our student financials friends to record those as well. So there are multiple ways of us being able to go in and handle those outside scholarships.
Okay, wonderful. Well, I know we've hit you with a lot of questions. There are still others and some ended up in chat. So I'm going to ask those other panelists that are on the call if you all could jump in and try and answer those. But I do want to get to this final thought and final question. First, before we jump into it, I just want to say, Jeff, you all have done so much and you've helped your students, and I have heard your heart and your passion, and you've done an amazing job. And I hope your words and kind of your journey is encouragement for those on this call. Implementations are not fun and easy. It's like, it's not something you just say, oh, I want to do. But when you look at the future, it's exciting. So thanks for having this very honest conversation, answering all these questions. All of us with AVAP and Workday appreciate you. We appreciate what you've done. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Now, Sasha, thank you for helping me prepare this and teaching me more than I ever knew about financial aid. You are starting when you did, you are an OG of financial aid, and that is wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Would the two of you share your final thoughts with the group? What would you like everybody to know? Sasha, why are you so passionate to help modernize when it comes to financial aid? And Jeff, how is your role different with Workday now than it ever was before? So you can think about that and just jump in whenever you're ready, but really give us your why are we here today talking about this?
So I can tell you for financial aid is like my heart, right? I think a lot of people will tell you I started off as a work study student, and once you're in financial aid, it's hard to leave the financial aid world. And so for me, I remember the system we used was still using F keys. Like I think I will die someday knowing that F3, F2, F9 pulls up a student. But being able to see how Workday transformed my life, from not needing those F keys, but also seeing how the work changed. A lot of my colleagues were scared that bringing in Workday was, what am I going to do? It seems like Workday does everything. But instead, what it did was it actually made me work in a different way. It made me think in a different way. And that's what I love so much about it. Not only is it helpful for students, but I think as a financial aid professional, it helps you be better at your job because you have the tools, but then you add that with your knowledge and your experience, and you're just better for it all around. And that's why I love financial aid. And that's why I love what I do every day is introducing schools to Workday because I believe in it and I've used it and I know it works. And it's just been life changing for me.
Absolutely. Well, and I hear you, and it is a heart and passion, and that's why I love higher ed. And I think about just in getting to know Jeff in this conversation, and I'm excited to hear what he says. But I remember in college, probably the one or two times I had that full-on crying breakdown was in the financial aid office. And our director of financial aid, very cool as a cucumber guy. I just said it's too overwhelming. I was a first generation student on aid and assistance and scholarships, and it was just too complicated and complex. And it was overwhelming me. And I understand that want to just run feeling. And his calm voice just said, no, we've got this. So Jeff, tell
Michelle,
us
that
what brought.
That's it. What you're saying is exactly what I want to say. So, what's different now with Workday? Your story is what we wanted to be different, right? We wanted to have our team be able to spend more time with our students, right? We're having more one-on-one conversations. We're able to do more programming now, right? Specific kind of targeted programming on different things happening in and around financial aid. So the fact that Workday is allowing us to kind of take away that manual processing and we will kind of review reports and work through reports and things like that. Workday's got the functionality for federal updates. It's saving us time in terms of making those changes. And what I love about it now, what's different than it has been in the past, is just all of the time we can spend with our students. Your story that you gave us about yourself is what we see all the time, right? And we're not, no one needs to be brushed away, right? We have all the time in the world to sit down and map out a plan and talk to that student and reassure them that everything's going to work out because of all that we have with Workday that solely allows us to do all of this now. And that's why we're here, right? With Sasha saying the same thing. I don't think anybody, you just happen to fall into the world of financial aid, right? And once you're here, I feel like you're here and we want to be impactful for the students, right? We want them to be here for their academics. We don't want them to worry about everything that comes out of the financial aid office that we've all had to worry about at one time or another. So having Workday, really kind of take over a lot of that so we can spend more time with our students is huge. And it's changed us in so many ways that we would never want to go back.
You're making my marketing brain work on something is that your staff, financial aid, can lean on Workday to do that tactical, repetitive, automated, so students can then lean on you.
Yes, absolutely.
Like we can use logic, but software won't have judgment, and that's what you and your team brings. Jeff,
Absolutely.
thank you so much.
Thank
I
you.
just like everybody on the call today. Look for more customer spotlight series. Share this and the recording with other members of your team. Thank you for joining us today. We look forward to talking to you again.